On April 26, 1986, at precisely 1:23 a.m., the world changed forever. In the remote town of Pripyat, near the northern border of Ukraine, a catastrophic explosion at Reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant released more radiation than the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined. This is the story of how it happened, the lies that followed, and the lives forever altered by the worst nuclear disaster in history. Chernobyl was part of the Soviet Union's ambitious plan to harness atomic energy. The plant was constructed in the 1970s near Pripyat, a model city built for workers and their families. At its peak, Pripyat had nearly 50,000 residents, complete with schools, amusement parks, hospitals, and sports arenas. The RBMK 1000 reactors used at Chernobyl were known to have design flaws that the Soviet authorities ignored or kept secret. These graphite-moderated reactors were powerful, but inherently unstable at low power levels. During a safety test aimed at simulating a power outage, Reactor 4's power plummeted unexpectedly. Operators, under pressure to meet test objectives, bypassed critical safety protocols. They disabled automatic shutdown mechanisms and withdrew control rods, actions that turned the reactor into a ticking time bomb. At 1:23 a.m., a massive steam explosion blew the reactor apart. Seconds later, a second, more powerful explosion followed, believed to be a nuclear excursion. The 2,000-ton reactor lid was thrown into the air. Graphite blocks ignited, spewing radioactive material into the atmosphere. The first firefighters arrived within minutes, unaware of the radiation hazard. They battled the inferno with water hoses and bare hands. Many would die in the coming weeks from acute radiation sickness. Among the first casualties was Vasily Ignatenko, a firefighter whose wife, Lyudmila, later recounted holding his swollen radioactive body in a hospital bed. Her story was immortalized in Svetlana Alexievich's Nobel Prize-winning book Voices from Chernobyl. For 36 hours, the Soviet government said nothing. Pripyat residents continued life as normal. Children played outside, unaware they were inhaling radioactive isotopes. It wasn't until radiation alarms went off in a Swedish nuclear plant, over 1,000 kilometers away, that the world learned something had gone terribly wrong in the USSR. On April 27th, the day after the explosion, residents were told to evacuate for a few days. They never returned. Over 49,000 people were relocated, pets were left behind, personal belongings abandoned. Today, Pripyat remains a frozen snapshot of Soviet life in 1986. The Chernobyl explosion released radioactive isotopes like iodine-131, cesium-137, and strontium-90 into the atmosphere. These were carried by wind across Europe, affecting Belarus, Russia, Ukraine, and even parts of Scandinavia and Western Europe. Around 350,000 people were eventually relocated from contaminated zones. The health impact? Still debated. The World Health Organization estimates 4,000 potential deaths due to radiation exposure. Greenpeace and other NGOs suggest the number could be as high as 200,000. Over 600,000 liquidators, soldiers, scientists, miners, and volunteers, were deployed to contain the disaster. They built the first sarcophagus around the destroyed reactor and removed highly radioactive debris by hand, often working for only 90 seconds at a time. The toll on their health remains staggering. Tens of thousands died prematurely or suffered long-term illness. Soviet scientists initially tried to hide the extent of the disaster from Gorbachev himself. Pripyat had dosimeters, but officials ordered them buried in sand to avoid panic. A giant molten radioactive mass inside Reactor 4 was later dubbed the Elephant's Foot, one of the most dangerous materials on Earth. Nearby forests turned red from radiation burns, creating the so-called Red Forest, one of the most contaminated places on the planet. Ukrainian miners worked in brutal conditions beneath the reactor to build a cooling slab, risking everything to prevent another explosion. In 2016, a new steel sarcophagus, the largest movable structure ever built, was placed over Reactor 4, It's designed to contain radiation for the next 100 years. Chernobyl has since become an eerie tourist destination, and a chilling reminder of mankind's hubris. In 2019, HBO's miniseries Chernobyl reignited global interest in the disaster. While dramatized, it forced many to confront the failures of bureaucracy and the high cost of truth suppressed. The people of Pripyat lost homes, health, and history. Families were torn apart. Businesses ceased to exist overnight. The trauma left psychological scars that endure to this day, and yet some refused to leave. A few elderly residents, mostly women, returned to their ancestral homes in the exclusion zone, choosing radiation over displacement. Chernobyl was more than an accident. It was a catastrophe born from arrogance, secrecy, and a blind race for power. But it was also a testament to courage. The firemen, the liquidators, the scientists, and the forgotten citizens who bore the weight of a nation's silence. History warns us, if we choose to listen.